maybe the swan song of the Jimmy G saga. He left. So Matt Barrows is the beat writer that I pay attention to most. Matt Mayoko's also does a really good job, but those guys on the beat, they're sort of presenting, in reporting the information as they see it. They're not necessarily kind of digging in. And on the flip side, Tim Kawakami as an analyst, he's kind of digging for stories sometimes. And he had Barrows and Dave Lombardi on his podcast very soon after the season ended. I think it was after the press conference to end the season. And Kyle was pretty testy in that press conference. He obviously does not like to lose, and he shows that emotion in his answers and his body language. And the question was laid out about why his quarterbacks get hurt. And, he just explained that it's really happenstance. Like, there's no pattern of injury here where, we're running guys and we're running plays that are getting these guys injured. This is his answer. I'm not excusing what he said. I'm just saying what his answer was. And he was clearly frustrated on this press conference. And so how this relates to Jimmy is that somebody asked him a question about Garoppolo, and he said there's no scenario where Garoppolo could return to the 49ers this offseason. Now, you and I just explained why that's not going to happen. Jimmy is not going to come in as QB3 and be inactive when there's so many other opportunities for him to go out there and battle for a number one spot. But
Jimmy's going to get a bag. Jimmy's going to get a bag this offseason. Watch. People think I'm crazy, but watch. Jimmy's going to get $30 or $40 million guaranteed. Watch. Trust me. It's going to happen.
So the question was sort of, why was Kyle so straightforward? Because he usually, whenever he talks about Jimmy, he's been hard on Jimmy in the past, but he likes to prop up Jimmy when he talks about him. And so Kawakami did some digging, and he said the relationship between Garoppolo and Shanahan Lynch seems to have gone a bit south in the days or weeks leading up to the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia. And I'll read the rest of his writing. He said, quote, "I don't know if there was a specific blow-up or conversation that led to this. I don't know what the main issue was. We know that Garoppolo won a lot of games in his 6 seasons with the 49ers. It partially bailed him out this season by agreeing to come back after believing he was going to be traded or cut last season. If I was to make a knowledgeable guess, I'd say the mood was always a little questionable this season between Garoppolo and Shanahan. They've never been especially close, even when they were winning, but they worked very well together for long stretches over this period. The personality differences were part of why this worked." And because I listened to Tim, and I read everything Tim writes, I heard him also say that part of, and this may be part of Shanahan's frustration with Garoppolo, is that when the season ends, Garoppolo's like, phone turned off, can't really find him. He's in the off season, and he, and Kyle is a 24/7 football guy, right? Like, he eats and drinks and sweats this stuff. So for Jimmy to just be like, peace out, see you guys when OTAs start or whatever, that may have been part of the frustration there. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, that could have been part of the frustration. But I figured, Jimmy has been the gift that keeps on giving for stuff like our chats when we were doing the Facebook group, even though they still have not brought me back. That's why we're on Discord, baby. We're moving on. And for stuff like this, for podcasts, like, still, if I put Jimmy Garoppolo's name in a video on YouTube, like, people are clicking on it. Like, it's just what it is. So I just want to end with the swan song. We've had Jimmy for, we made that trade with New England. We bring him in. The season is essentially over when we bring him in, and he just starts ripping the ball, throwing for 300 yards. I think we beat Seattle, or we came really close to beating Seattle, and when Seattle was still Seattle. They beat the Titans in like a last-second game or something, and he came in, and we're like, oh, wow, we may have something. Now, there were moments where we kind of did have something, and then there were moments where we didn't really have something, and he was actually not a positive. But what is your kind of lasting memory of Garoppolo in his 49ers tenure?
Man, 5-0. And he parlayed that 5-0 to $125 million. And, if we're being honest, we won a lot of games with Jimmy. Yeah. I had people beat me over the head for 6 years. When I say Jimmy is just what do you think makes Jimmy such a great quarterback? The only answer 49er fans could ever give me was 40 and blah, blah, blah. It was never anything about his individual game. It was always about the wins. And look, let's be honest. I trust you. Am I being hyperbolic when I say that he never reached the heights of that 5-0 start ever again? He was never really that guy ever really consistently again. He missed 25 games in 6 years. I mean, that's to me, that's probably the biggest part of the Jimmy Garoppolo story. I mean, I guess you could point to some of his performances in the postseason, I guess. But I just think, he just was not healthy enough, more consistently enough, for that amount of money. I mean, you can't have that guy missing a quarter of the games that he's eligible to play. I mean, if he's your franchise quarterback, I mean, that's the best ability is availability. So that's what I will always remember. And it's it'll kind of always be what could have been, with old Jimmy.
The way that I always answered that question, and when people would say, is he worth it, or I would just say, oh yeah, his best trait is that he's just handsome, and like people want to get behind him and follow him because he's like, he's got that like good looking dude confidence,
which is it's just, but that actually Garrett, that's kind of odd because that guy is normally like, how does that guy end up being the underdog guy? He's rich and handsome. Most people usually hate that guy.
But here's the thing. Guy. Here's the thing about, Kyle told the truth about Garoppolo in the playoffs when he wouldn't let him throw the football. And not to say that wasn't the best game plan. When they went to the Super Bowl, he did not really let this guy throw at all. He was playing. The 49ers playing so conservatively, and they were still winning games all the way to the Super Bowl. But the fact that he didn't let this guy really let it loose, I wonder if that also kind of hurt their relationship. Because if you're Jimmy and you're like, hey, man, I'm a quarterback, I can throw, and my coach is not letting me throw.
He's like, nah.
Like how that can't make him happy, right? No quarterback likes being in that situation of just like, hey, let's run the ball 45 times in this game and win 14-0. So I think I think Kyle was sort of trying to make sure that Jimmy didn't lose them games where Jimmy probably wanted opportunities to win games. And it was just, ultimately, I don't think Kyle ever trusted Jimmy in the way that Jimmy wanted to be trusted, or that felt that he should be trusted. And you could see that in the game plans, and you could see that in the not the results, but just drafting Trey, right? Like that was part of it. It's like, okay, like this is telling the truth on Jimmy. We are drafting someone who does all of the things that Jimmy can't do, especially torn ACL, where he became even more immobile after that. And we saw more of Jimmy getting rid of the ball faster than he needed to because he couldn't get out. He couldn't move up as well as he previously did in the past. So that was it. But ultimately, I think most fans will say that they were okay with the Jimmy experience. The more critical fans will probably say if Jimmy was a better version, we probably have a Super Bowl or two. And to have that, very few people get there. So that's a really high bar. The problem is he played for the 49ers, who had 5 Super Bowls, with 2 of the best quarterbacks of all time. So anytime a quarterback comes in here and doesn't deliver in those moments, you're always sort of like, well, it was okay, but he never won. And that's what we count as 49er fans is winning Super Bowls.